Alright, so just a disclaimer before the video starts. This deck profile is an updated one because I did it a few days before Aerial Steed Liberation dropped, but I didn't have the chance to upload it until now. So, but I still hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile, and a lot of the cards are in my Jamyocongo deck do still remain the same, so I'm putting this video out first before I do the update video for my Jamyocongo deck, which is coming up very soon in the next video. Alright, so just enjoy this video. So in standard Nubatama, as of now, before Aerial Steed Liberation drops, there are two variants, I guess, main variants you can play for Nubatama, which is Magatsu Storm and the Jamyocongo build. This deck profile will be for Magatsu Storm, as I've mentioned, because I feel like it's the better build overall, and it has more finishing power, and you hit high numbers as well. So the Magatsu Storm build plays, what they do is they focus on returning your own cards back to your hand after they have attacked, and then the VR Magatsu Storm is able to call out cards from your hand during your battle phase after you've returned cards to your hand, so essentially creating additional attacks during your battle phase. This is the main VR of the deck and the main card of the deck. So Magatsu Storm, Covert Demonic Dragon, Magatsu Storm. I play 4 copies of this card. So 2 abilities. First ability is when it is attacked by your opponent's Vanguard, counterblast 1 and retire 2 rear guards, and this unit cannot be hit until the end of the battle. So essentially Magatsu Storm has a perfect guard skill built into itself. Really good. For perfect guards, normally you would put the perfect guard down, and for the cost of the perfect guard you have to discard another card, so you lose 2 cards from your hand. For Magatsu Storm, instead of losing 2 cards from your hand, you will lose 2 cards from the field. So it's about the same, but the thing about this skill is that it allows you to save your perfect guards for to guard your opponent's rear guards instead. So that's pretty good. And Nubatama is a protect clan, so with this ability you can actually, kind of stock up your protect markers quite easily, especially against force decks. Second effect is when your rear guard is returned to your hand during your turn, you can Soul Blast 1 grade 3, draw a card, call 3 cards from your hand to rear guard circle, and they get 5,000 power until end of turn. So this was the ability that I was talking about. I'm a really big fan of this ability because Nubatama is a protect deck, but with Magatsu Storm you actually get to play like an XL deck, in that you get additional attacks during your turn. So with this skill, you will get 2 additional, at most 2 more attacks during your turn. So overall, you can actually do 5 attacks in 1 turn with Magatsu Storm. And there are actually a lot of cards in Nubatama Standard that can actually bounce themselves back from the field to the hand, so you don't have to worry about it being too difficult to set off Magatsu Storm's ability as well. So overall, I would say Magatsu Storm is a pretty balanced card. It is both offensive and defensive at the same time. So the first skill supports the defense part of Magatsu Storm with the built-in perfect guard skill, but is really useful against certain cards. For example, Dragonic Waterfall, which prevents you from guarding with Sentinels from your hand, as well as Ravenhead Dazzle, so cards like that. And it's just really good. So, and it's not once per turn as well. So if your opponent has like a restanding grade 3 Vanguard, for example Kagero, Dragonic Overlord the Great, Dragonic Overlord the End, as long as you have enough rear guard for you to pay the cost for Magatsu Storm, you'll be able to easily nullify your opponent's Vanguard. And then the second ability of Magatsu Storm actually makes Magatsu Storm the finisher for the deck, sort of, because creating 5 attacks, especially if you rewrite every turn, so that to get grade 3s into the soul, you can actually do 5 attacks almost every turn. Yep. And this deck also has some cards that allow you to soul charge to try to get grade 3s into your soul, so the cost isn't too difficult to achieve. Let's move on to our next grade 3. I play 3 copies of Stealth Dragon Voidmaster, one of my favorite original OG cards back in the day. So Stealth Dragon Voidmaster has become a much better card now. So 2 abilities. The first ability is Vanguard Rearguard. When placed until end of turn, your opponent cannot intercept, and Voidmaster gets 3,000 power. Blocking off intercepts is really good, especially since with the Magatsu Storm deck, you'll be swinging for tiny pokes initially, and afterwards then you'll be hitting for high numbers. But For those tiny pokes, all you have to do is just call a Void Master during your main phase, and you'll be able to force your opponents to gut all your attacks from your hand, because it's a until end of turn ability. So that's really good in whittling down your opponent's hand size. So it's indirectly controlling your opponent's hand in a way. Yep, and Void Master can hit all forms of Vanguard on his own because he's hitting for 15. Yep. So 15 is a 5k guard, and they're forced to not be able to intercept, so they have to either overguard or try to have a 5k in the hand to guard. Second ability of Void Master is, at the end of the battle it attacked Vanguard Rearguard, counterblast 1. You can choose one of your or your opponent's rearguards and return it to hand. So it can return itself as well, which is really good because he has an on-place effect, allowing you to activate the on-place intercept lock kind of effect every single turn. So this ability is what can actually help you to activate Magatsu Storm's effect, and Void Master is just one of the few cards in his deck that can do that. So very solid card overall. It's just not that good of a ride, but if you do ride him, you can actually try to rush early game and still be able to return your rearguards back to your hand with his effect, because his effect also works on Vanguard Circle as well. So yep, 3 copies of Void Master. Even with the new support from Aerial Steed Liberation with Jamyocongo and stuff like that, I'll probably still be playing Void Master just because of how good the intercept restriction is. We've already seen how good it is for Glory Maelstrom, and with Jamyocongo limiting your opponent's hand size down even more, it will be even scarier, and combined with Magatsu Storm as well, which can create 5 attacks, and for all those 5 attacks your opponent won't be able to use intercepts. It's pretty good, and it sort of make counters the Protect 2 as well, Protect 2 gift as well. So 3 copies of Stealth Dragon Void Master, just in case I ride into it. It's one of the best rearguards that we have. Next up, I play 2 copies of Shura Stealth Dragon Kongo. So as I've mentioned, in Nubatama standard you can actually have 2 deck builds. One is the Magatsu Storm variant, one is the Kongo variant. For my deck, even though it's mainly Magatsu Storm, I'm still playing 2 copies of these Kongo, just in certain matchups where you're like stuck on a grade 3. It's not good to be stuck on Magatsu Storm, because Magatsu Storm's second skill sort of forces you to rewrite in order to get a grade 3 into the soul, because there's no reliable way of getting grade 3s into the soul other than rewrite for Nubatama. So for example, in games against Murakumo Zambaku, you probably want to be riding into Kongo, and Kongo is probably the best first grade 3 ride for the deck, because as I've mentioned with Magatsu Storm, you need a grade 3 in the soul for it to be fully active. So this is the grade 3 you want to be riding into first before you go into the Magatsu Storms. So what is Kongo's effect? So 2 effects. The first effect is a Vanguard only effect. If your opponent's hand has 4 or more cards, you can counterblast 1 and your opponent discards 1. So sweet, goes back to the roots of Nubatama in forcing your opponents to discard. I like it. Second effect is, when your opponent's rearguard is returned to his or her hand by your card ability, your opponent cannot call cards with the same grade as the return card until the end of turn. It works much better in his own deck because Kongo has its own support cards in the form of Dreadmaster as well as Kabuki Kongo. So those cards can return cards from your opponent's field back to the hand with their own effects. And combined with Kongo, you'll be able to perform some guard restricts on your opponents. But for this deck, there is a grade 3 that returns cards from the field to the opponent's hand, which is this card. I'm gonna explain this card later. But other than this card, the only card that does is Void Master. With the new set, Tamahagane does return your opponent's rearguards back to their hand, so that's a thing to look out for as well. But you really only use Kongo's skill, first skill in this deck. Yeah, so sorry the video cut off there, but so yeah, Kongo, your first grade 3 ride for the deck. And then this is my last grade 3 that I play. It's a giftless grade 3, Stealth Beast Kokushigarasu. I'm pretty sure all of you guys already heard about this card. Activated on Vanguard Rearguard Circle, Soul Blast 3 and discard 2 Sentinels from your hand. This unit gets plus 15,000 power until end of turn, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, return all of your opponent's rearguards to hand. If 1 or more were returned, your opponent will have to discard 5 cards in total from his or her hand. So as you can see, it's pretty devastating. You ruin your basically, it's like a board wipe for your opponent, but it can be scarier in that, let's say your opponent has like only 1 rearguard. You use this effect, you return that 1 rearguard to your opponent's hand. Your opponent has to discard 5. Yeah, so you return 1 and discard 5, which is, a big minus for your opponent. The thing about Kokushigarasu, so I used to play Kokushigarasu at 2 or 3 copies previously, but I felt that the cost was, a little bit too hefty, discarding 2 Sentinels, and also it makes it such that, I can't pair the deck up with Protect 2 as well. I can't pair the deck up easily with Protect 2. And Kokushigarasu isn't a good ride at all. It doesn't give you the gift, and it's only at 11k base as compared to like, a 12k base at our other 12k base Vanguards. So I prefer to have him at 1, and I think having him at 1 is good enough because this deck actually draws quite a bit. We also filter quite a lot as well. We do have quite a lot of cards that filter and draw in this deck. So if you need it, I think it's quite easy to draw into him. It's not too difficult to draw into him. And if you don't draw into him, it's also okay because it's not really part of our win condition. It's just that certain situations, very situational thing, but certain situations where you're on like Jamyocongo and you have just nice have enough to pay the cost for Kokushigarasu. For example, like you have 3 soul and 2 sentinels from your hand. You can just call this down, return everything on opponent's field back to their hand. And if you manage to return a grade 0, a grade 1 and a grade 2, your opponent wouldn't be able to go up with anything other than protect gift markers and grade 3s if your Vanguard is Jamyocongo. So this card basically goes very well with Jamyocongo, but in the off chance that it does activate when you're on Magatsu Storm, it's also really good because making your opponent's discard 5 is no joke. Yeah. So just 1 copy of that. I'm definitely going to be replacing him with the new set. So that's enough of the grade 3s. Let's move on to the grade 2s. I play 4 copies of Stealth Dragon Magatsu Gale. Pretty much staple card now, as well as staple card after Aerial Steed Liberation. So Magatsu Gale's skill is Vanguard, Rearguard. When placed, counterblast 1, so blast 1, draw a card, and this unit gets 6,000. So it's really nice, it's a +1 to your hand, and it can hit false numbers without needing to boost. Here's a second effect, which is at the end of the battle it attacked, put it into the soul and return 1 of your other rearguards back to your hand. So essentially it sets up for Magatsu Storm and also allows you to activate on-call effects over and over again. So for example, you can return a Void Master on the field if you do have one, without needing to spend 1 counterblast for Void Master. Or you can return your counter charges back to your hand, so the next turn you can, activate their on-place counter charge effect. Okay. So solid card overall, wouldn't take it out even with the new set. The next grade 2 I play is one of my favorites, Momentary Stealth Rogue Tsunomasa. I used to not really want to play this card because of the 8k base, but afterwards, after trying out, I actually found that it's a really useful card for the deck. So 2 effects. When placed on rearguard, you can give one of your units 3000 power. If you gave a grade 3, you get the Soul Charge 1. Second effect, at the end of the battle it attacked, Soul Blast 1 and return it back to your hand. So second effect immediately activates Magatsu Storm's battle phase effect, and Tsunomasa's value comes in the fact that it can occasionally help you Soul Charge a grade 3. So if it does happen, you'll be able to activate Magatsu Storm much earlier and much more easily without needing to rewrite too often. Which is one of the weaknesses of this deck, is that you really need to be rewriting quite a lot. But of course we do have the incentive to rewrite, we are a Protect clan after all. But in some games where you can't rewrite, it's good to have Tsunomasa to try to force grade 3s into the soul. By luck of course, by chance of course. So I think it's a decent card overall, and it allows all your grade 3s to hit Force Vanguards without needing to be boosted, because it can give them 3k, so all of them will hit for at least 15. With Void Master will be hitting for 18, which is good numbers. So yep, 4 copies of Tsunomasa, free Soul Charge, and especially once you reach a grade 3 turn, and it can also allow for some early rush as well. My final 2 grade 2s, I only play them at 1 copy each. They're just tech choices for me. So we have Stealth Rogue of 1000 Blades Oborozakura, this classic card. When placed on rearguard, if you have 3 or more units, counterblast 1. You can give him 6000 power until end of turn, and if there are 1 or less face-up cards in your damage zone, you get to soul charge 1. So it's another soul charger for the deck. And it also powers up himself, which is good during the Magatsu Storm turns, where you want to be hitting high numbers to close games. Of course, it doesn't hurt to have another counter charger for the deck. So, interesting card. For now, Nubatama doesn't really have much we can play around with. Actually, we do have, but there'll be more in the next set, of course, especially with Tamahagane coming. So, just 1 copy of that, and then 1 copy of Stealth Dragon Dambreach. You can actually play 2 Dambreach or 2 Oborozakuras. Another card that I would consider is Chigasumi, which I'll talk about later at the end of the video. But Dambreach skill, Dambreach is just a high hitter. It's just a card that hits 1 numbers. So continuous on rearguard. If your or your opponent's rearguard was returned to hand during this turn, you get 6k. So it's a good card to call out with Magatsu Storm's effect, because he'll be hitting for 20. Yeah, 6k with his own effect and 5k with Magatsu Storm's effect. And you definitely have already returned something to your hand if you can activate Magatsu Storm's skill. So, yep, that's a given. So that's my grade 2 lineup. Play 10 grade 2s only. With this grade 2, you'll be with Tsunomasa, you'll be returning it to your hand every single turn, so you don't have to worry about your lack of grade 2s. Alright, for the grade 1s, start off first with 4 copies of one of the most important grade 1s in this deck. Actually, all the grade 1s in this deck are very important. Yep, so this is one of the more important ones. Sakura Fubuki. So it's the counter charger for Nubatama. Skill is when placed. When placed, if you have 3 or more units, you can discard a card from your hand. Give itself 3000 power until end of turn. And if you have 1 or less face-up cards in the damage zone, draw a card and counter charge. So essentially the full skill is, if you have 1 or less cards in a damage zone, you have 3 or more units, discard 1, draw a card, it gets 3000, hitting for 11,000 on its own, which is not that bad as well, 11k boosters. But the value in it comes in its ability to filter through your deck, as well as help you counter charge. Because if you want to be spamming cards like Void Master or Magatsu Gale, as well as Magatsu Storm's Perfect Guard effect, you definitely need open counterblasts. And with another card in this deck, which is your Stealth Fiend or Borrow card, the deck can become quite counterblast heavy depending on the type of cards you draw into. So very useful card, definitely a staple, 4 off. So I played 3 copies of Stealth Fiend or Borrow card. This was originally a Murakumo card back in the day. So a Borrow card has 2 skills. First effect is, when placed, discard a card from a hand and double the power of one of your grade 3 or greater units in the same column as this unit until the end of turn. I love to pair this card up with either Kokushigarasu or Void Master. So how it works is, you have Void Master, you call Void Master gets 3000 power with his own effect. So Void Master is currently at 15. Call a Borrow card behind Void Master. You discard 1 card from hand, either your Protect or just any card in this card, and you double Void Master's power. So Void Master's current power is at 15. You double it, so it becomes 30. So this column will be hitting for at least 38,000, which is quite insane. With just 1 discard, you'll be able to power up your units so high. So it's a really good card. Yep. And it's also good to put it behind the Vanguard as well if you want the Vanguard to hit high, if you know your opponent doesn't have PGs. Second effect is, at the end of the battle, it attacks or boosted. You can counterblast 1 and return this unit back to your hand. So once again, sets up for Magatsu Storm. And allows you to activate his on-call effect next turn, every single turn. So that every single turn you will have like a 38k column with it and Void Master. Next, I played 3 copies of Stealth Dragon Magatsu Breath. So Magatsu Breath is the grade 1 version of your VR and Gale. So Breath's skill is, when placed, if your Vanguard has Magatsu in its card name, it gets 3000 power. So 11k boosters, just like Sakura Fubuki, pretty good. At the end of the battle, you attack to boost it, Soul Blast 1 and discard a card from your hand. Return all of your rearguards in the same column as this unit back to your hand. So once again, it's a card that activates Magatsu Storm, but it's even better than Oboro card in a way, in that it returns 2 cards, but you have to discard 1. So you discard 1 and return 2 cards back to your hand, essentially clearing up a column for you to potentially call out, you know, more attackers and more boosters with Magatsu Storm's effect. So Oboro card and Magatsu Breath actually make for a good grade 1 rush cards if you really want to go for the grade 1 rush. So yep, that's our Magatsu Breath. It's also good in helping you to return, you know, cards from a field that do not have the ability to return itself back. For example, Dam Breach, Oboro Zakura, as well as Sakura Fubuki. So these 2 cards, let's say you activated both their effects this turn, so you have a 22k column, which is hitting for magic numbers, and with Magatsu Breath skill, you'll be able to return Sakura Fubuki back to your hand so that you can activate the on-place countercharge effect again. So yep, that's that. And our final grade 1s, we play 3 copies of Tempest Stealth Rogue Fuki. Fuki is the grade 1 version of Dam Breach. So if your or your opponent's rearguard is returned to hand this turn, it gets 6,000. So essentially it's hitting for 14. So 14, it becomes 19 with Magatsu Storm. I would say it's a very nice card to have in the deck. So that rounds up the normal units. Let's move on to the triggers. For Nubatama, as of now, I feel like this is the best trigger lineup to have. I feel like even after Aerial Steed Liberation, I will still be, you know, playing this trigger lineup, but who knows, more testing will be needed. I like the 6 crits, 6 draws, and 4 heals for Nubatama as of now. 6 crits are of course needed in every deck. I feel like they help to close games, they help to surprise your opponents when they're 4 damage and they say no guard to your Vanguard. 6 draws in this deck, because this deck actually has quite some discard costs. So for example, Sakura Fubuki requires you to discard. Your Oboro card requires you to discard. Magatsu Breath requires you to discard. And if you're playing this card, Kokushi Garasu, you also have to discard. So these 2 draw triggers, Otsuzura, are very good discard foders. Yep, the regular ones. And of course your PG Sentinels, you definitely need them. Even though your Vanguard is a built-in PG, it's definitely good to have, you know, additional perfect cards to have. 4 heals mandatory, I feel. So that's the trigger lineup, and we can move on to the alternatives. Okay, so let's start off first with the grade 3s for the alternatives. I'm actually quite pleased with the current grade 3 lineup that I have. I don't think there's anything much to change for this set, but with Aerial Steed Liberation, of course, things will definitely change a lot. I'll talk about the Aerial Steed Liberation changes after I talk about what are the changes you can do for this set. So for this set, I think if you want, maybe the first change is to add more Dam Breach. If you want more cards that hit for, you know, false numbers. Another card you can add more of is this card, Oboro Zakura. So both cards are really good cards that hit, you know, numbers. Oboro Zakura also gives you utility in the form of Soul Charge for the deck. And this is Trigasumi, the card I was talking about just now. Previously, when I was discussing about the grade 2s. So Trigasumi has a very nice effect. When it attacks, discard a card from your hand, and this unit gets 15,000 power until the end of the battle. So Trigasumi can attack for 24,000 on its own for just 1 discard. So to some it's quite hefty and not worth it, but I think it can be good to push for a final push, because 24 with Magatsu Storm's effect is 29. And if you play Protect 2 is even higher. So, and it's all just for 1 discard. That's why it's very important for, you know, Nubatama decks to have more than 4 draw triggers, so that you can replenish your hand. But yeah, Trigasumi is a nice card to maybe have a 1-off or 2-offs in your deck. So that's all for the grade 2s. For the grade 1s, potential cards you can upgrade, or maybe personal preference. Stealth Dragon Dreadmaster So Dreadmaster works with Kongo in allowing you to return one of your opponent's rear guards back to their hand and forcing them to discard one. If they don't return, let's say they have no rear guards, they still have to discard one, so it's pretty good. And but Dreadmaster also allows you to filter through your deck with this on write and on call. Basically, on place, discard one and draw one card. So allowing you to draw into your key pieces, which is very important for the deck. I don't think there's anything else that's worth running for grade 1s. I think our grade 1s are quite solid for now. But you can actually play an additional grade 0 for the deck, which is Hagakure. Let me show you guys. So this is Hagakure. Hagakure's skill is when placed on rearguard circle and guardian circle, choose one of your units and increase or decrease this unit's power and shield to match that unit until end of turn. So it can work both offensively and defensively. So how you use it is with this card, Oboro card. So let's say you have an Oboro card and you have Voidmaster. So Voidmaster is a very key card. So Oboro card and Voidmaster. So let's say you have these three, as well as one other card in your hand. Maybe you have like this. Okay, so you can do this. Call down your Oboro card. Sorry, you call down your Voidmaster. Gets 3000 power. Call down Oboro card. Oboro card skill, you discard one, and then you double Voidmaster's power. So Voidmaster is at 30,000 currently. Then you call Hagakure to the front row. Hagakure copies Voidmaster's power, so you ignore his 4000. His power goes to, or rather becomes, 30,000. So you have a grade 0 30k attacking on his own, which is very strong. So I've seen Nubatama players playing this card. Personally, I've never tried it really for the deck, so I'm not sure how effective it actually is, but I don't really want to mess with my grade ratios. I feel like the deck works okay without Hagakure, but of course it's a nice card to have if you want to hit for surprisingly large numbers and just have more attackers basically for the deck, because Hagakure can definitely attack. Most of the time, if Hagakure will be attacking for numbers higher than what your regular grade 1s will be attacking for. Alright, so that's all for the upgrades that you can do for this from this set. The other cards, as I've mentioned, like your Magatsu breads, Oboro cards, Voidmasters, all those are just personal taste, personal preference after you do some play testing and you decide the ratios for yourselves. Okay, so this is the end of my old Magatsu Storm deck profile. So as I've promised at the start of the video, the new one will be up very soon after this video. So yep, I'll see you guys there. Bye.